November 1858. Abraham Lincoln sits in his office in Springfield, Illinois. He's just lost. Again. His 8th major political defeat. 8 times he's run for office or sought political position. 8 times rejected. At age 49, most people would quit. Accept that politics isn't for them. Settle for a quieter life. Abraham Lincoln does the opposite. He prepares to run for the highest office in the land. 2 years later, he'll be President of the United States. For years after that, he'll save the nation from destruction and free 4 million enslaved people. But right now, in November 1858, he's a failure. Again, this is not a story about natural-born leadership. This is a story about failing over and over and refusing to quit. This is about 8 defeats before 1 victory that changed the world. This is about a man who lost elections, businesses, and his mind, but never lost his purpose. This is Abraham Lincoln's complete story. And it begins with failure. Abraham Lincoln is born February 12, 1809, in a 1-room log cabin in Kentucky. His family is poor. Very poor. Frontier poor. His mother dies when he's 9. His father remarries. Lincoln gets less than a year of formal education total. He teaches himself to read by candlelight, borrowing books from anyone who has them. By his early 20s, Lincoln is tall, 6 feet 4 inches, gangly, awkward. He works as a rail splitter, store clerk, postmaster, surveyor. Whatever pays. Age 22. Lincoln and a partner open a general store in New Salem, Illinois. Berry and Lincoln. They sell goods on credit to farmers. The business fails within months. Lincoln is left with massive debt, what he calls the national debt, because it takes him years to pay off. Age 23. Lincoln runs for the Illinois state legislature. He campaigns hard. Speaks at every gathering. Loses badly. 8th out of 13 candidates. Failure number 2. Defeated for state legislature, 1832. 1833. Age 24. Lincoln tries another business. Another store. It also fails. Now he has even more debt. Failure number 3. Second business failed, 1833. Lincoln runs for state legislature again. This time he wins. Finally, a victory. He serves in the Illinois legislature, studies law on his own, becomes a lawyer. But personal tragedy strikes. 1835. Lincoln is engaged to Anne Rutledge. She dies suddenly, likely from typhoid fever. Lincoln is devastated. Age 27. Lincoln suffers what he calls a nervous breakdown, what we'd now call severe depression. He's barely functional. Friends worry he might harm himself. Failure number 4. Nervous breakdown, 1836. Not a political failure, but a personal collapse that nearly ends everything. He recovers. Slowly. Throws himself into law and politics. 1838. Lincoln wants to be Speaker of the Illinois House. He's been in the legislature for years. Seems like natural progression. He loses. Failure number 5. Defeated for Speaker, 1838. Lincoln wants to be an elector for the Whig Party. A ceremonial position, but a political stepping stone. Defeated. Failure number 6. Defeated for elector, 1840. Lincoln runs for U.S. Congress. Loses the Whig nomination to another candidate. Failure number 7. Defeated for Congress, 1843. Lincoln runs for Congress again. This time he wins. Serves 1 term. But his anti-war stance during the Mexican-American War makes him unpopular. He doesn't seek re-election. Tries to get a position in the Taylor administration. Rejected. Basically defeated for Congress again. Couldn't continue his political career. Failure number 8. Defeated for Congress continuation, 1848. Lincoln returns to Springfield. Practices law. He's good at it. Makes decent money. But politics is his passion. His purpose. The Kansas-Nebraska Act passes. It allows new territories to choose whether to allow slavery. Lincoln is outraged. Slavery, he believes, is fundamentally wrong. He's been relatively quiet on slavery before. Not anymore. Lincoln runs for U.S. Senate from Illinois. Loses to anti-slavery Democrat Lyman Trumbull. Lincoln withdraws to ensure Trumbull beats the pro-slavery candidate. Failure number 9. Defeated for Senate, 1855. Lincoln seeks the Republican nomination for Vice President. Loses. Failure number 10. Defeated for Vice President, 1856. Most people would quit. Lincoln is nearly 50. He's failed in business twice. Lost 8 elections or appointments. Suffered a mental breakdown. lost the love of his life. But Lincoln believes he has a purpose. And he's not done yet. 1858. Lincoln runs for U.S. Senate again. His opponent, Stephen Douglas, the most famous Democrat in the country. The Little Giant. Lincoln challenges Douglas to a series of debates. 7 debates across Illinois. Thousands attend. The nation watches. The debates focus on slavery. Douglas argues for popular sovereignty. Let each territory decide. Lincoln argues that slavery is morally wrong and should not expand. A house divided against itself cannot stand, Lincoln declares. I believe this government cannot endure permanently half slave and half free. The debates make Lincoln famous nationally. His moral clarity, his logic, his humanity. But he loses the election. The Illinois legislature chooses Douglas for the Senate. Failure number 11. Defeated for Senate, 1858. His 8th major political defeat. Lincoln is crushed. I feel like the boy who stubbed his toe, he says. I am too big to cry and too badly hurt to laugh. May 1860. Republican National Convention in Chicago. The favorites for the presidential nomination. William Seward of New York. Salmon Chase of Ohio. Prominent senators. Famous men. Abraham Lincoln of Illinois, not the favorite. He's lost more elections than most politicians have run. He's a one-term congressman and skilled debater. That's it. But Lincoln has a strategy. He's been building relationships, writing letters, making deals. First ballot, Seward leads. Lincoln is second. Second ballot, the gap closes. Third ballot, Abraham Lincoln wins the Republican nomination for President of the United States. The man who failed 8 times before winning anything major is now running for president. Against a divided Democratic Party. In a nation about to tear itself apart over slavery. November 6, 1860. Election Day. The Democratic Party has split. Stephen Douglas, Lincoln's old opponent, runs as Northern Democrat. John Breckinridge runs as Southern Democrat. John Bell runs for the Constitutional Union Party. For candidates. The nation fracturing. Lincoln wins with 40% of the popular vote, but a majority of electoral votes. He doesn't win a single Southern state. Doesn't even appear on the ballot in 10 Southern states. But he wins. Abraham Lincoln, 11 failures, now President of the United States. Before he even takes office, 7 Southern states secede from the Union. They will not accept a president who opposes slavery. The nation is on the brink of war. And Lincoln will have to save it. April 12, 1861. Confederate forces fire on Fort Sumter in South Carolina. The Civil War begins. Lincoln faces the greatest crisis in American history. The United States is literally tearing itself apart. Brother fighting brother. A nation at war with itself. The early war goes badly for the Union. Bull Run defeat. The Peninsula Campaign, failure. Lincoln goes through multiple generals who can't win. The pressure is immense. Lincoln barely sleeps. Reads casualty reports. Visits wounded soldiers. Writes letters to grieving families. If there is a worse place than hell, Lincoln says, I am in it. But he never gives up. Never considers letting the South go. The Union must be preserved.
April 12, 1861. Confederate forces fire on Fort Sumter in South Carolina. The Civil War begins. Lincoln faces the greatest crisis in American history. The United States is literally tearing itself apart. Brother fighting brother. A nation at war with itself. The early war goes badly for the Union. Bull Run defeat. The Peninsula Campaign, failure. Lincoln goes through multiple generals who can't win. The pressure is immense. Lincoln barely sleeps. Reads casualty reports. Visits wounded soldiers. Writes letters to grieving families. If there's a worse place than hell, Lincoln says, I am in it. But he never gives up. Never considers letting the South go. The Union must be preserved. September 22nd, 1862. After the Union victory at Antietam, Lincoln issues the preliminary Emancipation Proclamation. January 1st, 1863. The Emancipation Proclamation takes effect. All enslaved people in Confederate territory are declared free. It doesn't free all enslaved people immediately, only those in rebel states. But it changes the war. This isn't just about Union anymore. It's about freedom, liberation, justice. African Americans join the Union Army by the thousands. Frederick Douglass recruits black soldiers. The war becomes a war to end slavery. November 19th, 1863. Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Lincoln delivers the Gettysburg Address. 272 words. 2 minutes. Fourscore and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty, and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. He redefines the war, redefines America. This is about equality, about a new birth of freedom. 1864. Lincoln runs for re-election. The war is grinding on. Casualties mounting. Many want to make peace, even if it means accepting slavery. Lincoln refuses. We must finish the work, he says. November 1864. Lincoln wins re-election decisively. The people choose to continue the fight. April 9th, 1865. General Robert E. Lee surrenders to General Ulysses South Grant at Appomattox Courthouse. The Civil War is over. The Union is saved. 620,000 Americans dead. The bloodiest war in American history. But the nation survives. And slavery is ending. April 14th, 1865. Good Friday. 5 days after Lee's surrender. Lincoln goes to Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. to see a play, Our American Cousin. He's with his wife Mary and 2 guests. 10:15 p.m. Act 3. A moment of loud laughter from the audience. John Wilkes Booth, a Confederate sympathizer and actor, enters the president's box. Fires a single shot into the back of Lincoln's head. Lincoln is carried across the street to a boarding house. Doctors try to save him. There's nothing they can do. April 15th, 1865. 7:22 a.m. Abraham Lincoln dies. Secretary of War Edwin Stanton says, "Now he belongs to the ages." Abraham Lincoln served as president for just over 4 years. In that time, he preserved the United States of America. The nation could have shattered permanently. Lincoln held it together, ended slavery. The 13th Amendment, which Lincoln championed, abolished slavery throughout the United States. 4 million people freed. Redefined American democracy. The Gettysburg Address and his second inaugural address set new standards for what America could be. His second inaugural, delivered just weeks before his death. With malice toward none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right as God gives us to see the right, let us strive on to finish the work we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds. He wanted reconciliation, healing, not revenge. Abraham Lincoln failed 8 times before becoming president. Let that sink in. 8 major failures. 2 businesses collapsed. 6 elections lost. A nervous breakdown. Depression that nearly killed him. Most people quit after 1 or 2 failures. Lincoln kept going after 8. Why? Because he believed he had a purpose larger than himself. He believed in the Union, in equality, in the idea that all men are created equal actually meant something. He said, "My concern is not whether God is on our side. My greatest concern is to be on God's side." He wasn't fighting for personal glory. He was fighting for what was right, and that made failure bearable, because the cause was bigger than his ego. From a one-room cabin to the White House. From 8 failures to the greatest presidency in American history. From defeated candidate to the man who saved the nation and freed the enslaved. Abraham Lincoln proved that failure is not final. That persistence, purpose, and principle matter more than winning every battle. He lost 8 times. Then won once. And that one victory changed the course of human history. The man who failed the most became the one we remember most.